We're coming live from Studio B, which is actually BB's man shed, which is his garage. We've been here before, but yeah, got to come down to North Carolina for a couple of days and hang out with him and Doug. And, you know, I can't express how grateful I am that these guys let me tag along. You know, we don't have a season in Virginia, so being able to come down and hang out with them and just do a little extra work with my dogs is a blessing. Yesterday, I kind of rode Doug's shirt tails. And then this morning, me and BB got after it and had a good race. And we was able to catch the older dogs. And when I say older dogs, mine are 2 years old. And you had what?
I had one that was 5 that we used to start with, but the other ones are a year old.
Yeah. So we're running young stuff. So we let our year olds keep on keeping on. And I just told BB, like, the best part of the whole hunt, and we pulled the dogs off of it, but man, it broke through this big section of timber, and BB said he's out in the field, so I had to drive around, and I seen the dog. He'd done crossed the road into another field. And I could see the dog. BB's like, well, look out in front. And I could see the bear standing way out through this wheat field. And BB drove around and caught the 2 dogs that got through. Was it 2?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I caught everything else that was coming through. But yeah, it was pretty fun. And I mean, all the dogs are a year old or less, actually.
Yeah, 11 months.
Yeah, Rogue and them's 11 months.
Yeah, the two that were out in front were 11 months old.
Yeah, so that was a good time. I mean, I enjoyed that part of it, even though, like I said, we had to pull the dogs off. But today, we're going to just talk about it's something that's been on my mind a lot about hunting. And it's not about the hunting part. It's about the why. You know, no matter what you do in life, you always ask yourself, why? Why do I do this? What am I doing this for? And I'm a why person. Like, I ask a lot of questions. And it's not that I'm being hard to get along with. I want to understand the why. And, you know, in leadership, you know, if anybody's in leadership, you look at the Simon Sinek, it starts with why. So I've been asking myself this a lot, like, why do I do what I do? As far as the outdoors, I grew up in a small rural community. I mean, 1,700 people was in my town, and there was nothing to do. You had to drive 45 minutes to a big store. Like, there wasn't no Walmarts, there wasn't no, you know, we had a couple little gas stations and a couple little mom and pop grocery stores, but we spent the summer on the creeks and in the hay fields, and, you know, you spent the fall playing football and hunting, and that's all I've known, and I enjoy it. You know, I see these posts come up all the time about, you know, the best therapy in the world is outdoors, and I couldn't agree with that more. I mean, I sitting on my boat when there's not a lot of people out, and I'm just, even if I'm not catching fish, it's just so peaceful and it's so relaxing, and I enjoy it. But I want to get into the why. Why do I use dogs to hunt, and why do I like to train dogs? You know, what's the purpose of it? So, maybe I'm going to start with you. I'm going to let them tell your why, and then I'll get into mine.
Well, kind of like you, I grew up on the family farm, so I was all the time, if I wasn't riding in the tractor with my grandfather, I was riding in the truck with him, hunting or going around looking at crops and stuff like that. And so I grew up, and my grandfather had a pack of deer dogs, so every fall after he got all the crops in, he was always deer hunting with the dogs, and I always liked that, and I always wanted a coon dog, and never got that while I was around here at home. I didn't get into the coon dog world until Shuck's sophomore year of college, I believe freshman or sophomore year of college. I put a post out on UKC, and I met some real good lifelong friends up there who agreed to let me tag along coon hunting. That's kind of how I met you, Heath. But then, so for me, I've always liked the dogs, and I've been exposed to the bear hunting world through Doug, and you know, I just thought that was just the pinnacle of, training, performance, how they handled, what they did. It was just different than the deer dog world. And I wanted to get to that eventually. And then so I ended up getting a coon dog, the first one, and with the overall goal of down the road getting a pack of bear dogs. And so it was a long road, but finally I'm getting halfway there. But I guess the reason why my grandfather always, he took me deer hunting and always deer hunting with the dogs, but he always even held at a higher respect, the bear hunting, and always wanted to kill a bear, and had been with Doug, bear hunting and stuff, and the stories he'd come back and tell me or call me when I was in college and tell me about, how the dogs did and the dog work. And so I was just kind of hooked after that, and especially after I went and tagged along with it. And the adrenaline that comes with actually seeing that bear for the first time, you can't match it. Mm-hmm. To know that you hear that stick crack and it's not a deer coming, and then you see the bear come out in the path or across the road or whatever, and man, it's just something different. And so the original why was just because of, I held the kind of the bear hounds at the pinnacle standard. And then it's kind of evolved to the more of how much I enjoy the process of training, and then I really enjoy the process of trying to develop or make crosses that succeed, where you got a higher percentage of dogs or puppies that end up making good dogs. So really, I kind of got into a wormhole of genetics and traits and trying to match traits, and then I've kind of gone down this long path of you could almost call it an addiction of being able to plan something in your head across and then try and see those traits come out when those switches click in those young dogs. And that's really what brings me back, and why I'm all, I usually raise 1, 2, 3 litters a year, and that's my addiction is really watching those dogs work and watching good young dogs start and being responsible for that. So that's definitely why I do it.
Yeah, I think it is an addiction, and the challenge is what kind of magnifies that on top of everything else. So I get it, and I think about my why, like why do I use dogs to hunt, and like my list is pretty long. You guys have heard me say this before on this podcast. There's never been a time in my life that there's not been a dog with me. I mean, from the time that I was, knee-high to a grasshopper, I remember the dogs that we had. I mean, when I was young, and I mean young, Dad had Great Danes. And then he switched over to labs, and we raised labs for a long time. In fact, Gus, which was our last lab, he's probably been dead about 10 years, and Dad had slowly switched over to the healers. He had blue healers and a couple red healers, and now he's got one. It's an old mountain collie. But the dogs have always been a part of my life, and I never understood the love that I have for dogs. As we were driving up the road today, because I was thinking about this, I'm like, okay, well, I love animals. Believe it or not, even though I am a hunter, I love wildlife. I love watching animals and learning. I mean, the bear, to me, for our area, is the apex predator, just like the muskie that I fish for. And, people don't get to see, like, I never seen a bear in the woods until I was in my 20s. And I stayed in the woods. Like, I lived in the woods. So having something that would catch that type of animal just overwhelmed me. But the training process, like what you're talking about, BB, is when I first started, I didn't know anything. You fed them, you give them a place to stay, a house, and that's what I knew. And I learned a lot by watching Monkey See, Monkey Do. And a lot of that Monkey See, Monkey Do is not stuff that I'm okay with now. I've learned, I've evolved. I'm continuing to learn. But it's kind of like what you're saying. I like to take those young dogs and watch them evolve. And I know with good guidance and being able to, stop bad behaviors, i.e. trashing, putting them on game, doing stuff like that. And, the dogs that are genetically programmed to do what we're asking them to do, it's amazing sometimes to watch them evolve. Like, all you have to do is put them on the right game, deter them from running the wrong game, and they do everything else, basically. I turn them loose and I pick them up. That's my job. But I do like the training aspect. And to get into this a little deeper, the police dogs, because that's another why. Why do I do what I do? Again, it goes back to I've always had a dog around me, and my love for dogs, period, is stronger than I ever realized. And then when you get into the police section, and this is going to circle right back around to the hounds, because it all has a purpose. Like, we have a purpose for these animals. The police dogs, we're training them to detect odors, no matter what it is. We're training them to track, which they do naturally. I have to train the handler to read the body language. And then you do the apprehension and the obedience and the agility. There's so many facets that go into training a law enforcement dog. And I like the challenge. Same thing as you. I like that challenge. I like being able to understand what drives that animal to do this, and then being able to channel those drives into a function that is good for us or can perform a task for us to either make us safer or stronger or whatever it may be. And then, like I said, that goes all the way back to the hounds, right back to the why. Because a hound has a purpose. If you tie that dog up in the backyard and you leave him there, he's going to drive you crazy. And we talked about one of my young dogs. Like, he's at that point, like, he's driving me crazy. Having him out for the last couple of days and actually getting him around stuff, bam, you can see that change already happening. And we know it's going to happen. So genetically, I suck at it. Like, I can write this stuff out on paper, X, Y equals Z and W, and I can put it together, and I'm going to end up with A and B. I'm on the other end of the spectrum with whatever I'm getting. But being able to match those genes up and produce a quality hound is a feat that a lot of people struggle with.
Oh, for sure. And Doug's even said it, I think, on this podcast that, not many people, and I'm of the same opinion, that not many people have actually seen a good dog work. And when they do see it, once they do see that, a what I would classify as a good dog, and sometimes those dogs are, for a lot of people, they're only a once-in-a-lifetime dog, but those are the type of dogs that I want to produce. And they don't come every day. And so when it's kind of nice to be able to see them start to click, but you're always looking for that little bit of extra and trying to get that, the genetics thing, you can try any, there's so many different things you can try, and you never know what you're going to get. But I've kind of always been that philosophy of I'll try it once and just see what happens, and then you never know, and learn from that experience and move forward. But you got to be honest with what you got and what you see, and how you evaluate what you're looking, the dogs that you're looking at. But yet, those good ones, they'll stand out in your memories, and the stuff they do will just, it just leaves you in awe. You just don't ever know. You think about like how in the world did that dog accomplish that feat or achieve that task based on the obstacles that it had to overcome doing it. Whether it's one dog that's constantly up ahead, out in front catching, or something that's cold trailed, works it up and finally gets it jumped, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and you've been working at it for 4 or 5 hours. So, those type of things sit you back and really make you think like, what you really look for, or help you set your standards too, because a lot of people, if they've never seen that, they don't know it's out there. And that's, that's my thing, is I like to see good dogs work, and it doesn't matter whose dog it is, because I'm always looking for that next potential cross. So, I mean, that's another reason why I do what I do is, try and meet people with dogs and go see them hunt or hunt with them and see them work. It's definitely one of those things that once it gets in your blood, you can't really get rid of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm gonna kind of backtrack a little bit on some of the stuff that you said. Like, it's hard when you've got a pack of dogs. Let's just take 6 dogs pack, and if you don't separate those dogs, you don't know what you have. Yeah, that dog may be running out front a little bit, but can he do it? Will he do it by his? Like for me, my ultimate indicator, or my what's the word I'm looking for? My ultimate. Okay, yes, I'm taking that dog out of this category. Is, can he do it by himself consistently? Every dog. There's always, we say this, we have the saying is, blind hog find an acorn every once in a while. And I've had dogs that could not tree a bear by themselves pop up and tree a bear by themselves. That bear decided, I'm not running, I'm going to go up. And then lo and behold, old June's down there treed on it, and it's the best dog in the world. But she can't do it day in and day out. So, you taking those dogs out of that pack, that's the tape measure for me. And it's hard to do that. It's hard to separate that sometimes. But that's how I measure what I have and what I don't have. And I want to go back again. And maybe we talked about this on the other podcast that you and Doug had done. So Wendell, was he the first one that got you a dog?
No, I found a dog on, I think, UKC. It was a plot.
We all started with plots. It's okay.
And he had a heck of a mouth, but he would run a coon track, and as soon as he hit the tree, he'd turn around and run it right back the same way he came, and he never would follow or never lock down treed. I ended up deer hunting him for a little bit, and actually ended up selling him for a deer dog down the road. But yeah, that was where I started. But yeah, Wendell reached out to me, and then Lindell Price.
Yeah. So
I was hunting with them 2, 3, 4 nights a week when I was in college. So
they hunted hard.
Yeah, I was. I said I'm here to learn, and I'll help lead a dog out or do whatever I can to help. And learned a lot from that. And it started me a long way. It started me down my road. I was gifted a puppy by Buck Ratliff, my autumn female. So, and she was a once-in-a-lifetime dog for me. I didn't know what I was doing. I don't know how many nights I sat on a log in the woods just right by myself, and or sit on the dog box, or lay down on the dog box and looked at the stars, fell asleep, woke up, and she finally got to the point she'd go off and get treed, and I think I granted her out right before she turned 3. But I traveled all over competition hunting with her, and she was definitely an inspiration. And then I would take my buddies that deer dog hunted, and they would see how that dog handled. I could call her off a tree, she'd follow me to the truck. When she was younger, she picked the coon up, carried on to the truck with you. She was, just that special dog, and they couldn't believe how the dog handled. And that's just kind of driven me even more to produce and have dogs that handle and dogs that can. And I'm not, I got some decent dogs, but I'm not where I want to be yet. I got a ways to go, but I feel like every year they're getting better and better. And something that I see is the more time I'm able to dedicate to them and really, and then single them out, knock the numbers down to, taking 2 or 3 young dogs, 4 young dogs at a time, and taking them out and letting them do it on their own. It's just made better and better dogs. And that's hard to do when you got so many in the kennels. And so you got to hunt a lot in order to be able to alternate through them all, to keep them in shape and to keep them tuned up halfway through the training season and everything. Because I'm always wanting to train the young dogs, but I've always got older dogs that are in the kennels at home or something like that. But I always do leave something behind usually, because when I'm during hunting season, I'm alternating dogs. So I'm hunting fresh dogs every day that I hunt. So and then when I go to Maine, I have 2 sets of dogs that I can take and hunt, since we're limited to the 6. So
yeah, and that brings me back to the why. And like I said, I've thought about this, and I'm going to exclude the police dogs out of it because that's a whole separate thing. But why do we train our hounds? And when I say train, I don't mean put them in the woods and let them run. That's part of it. But why do we train our dogs to handle, to load, to lead, to not bust out of the box and run over top of you and break your fingers when you get them accidentally caught in the D-ring of the because that's happened. I mean, you guys listening, y'all probably had it happen too. Why do I train? And somebody asked me on, I don't know if it was on a podcast or I don't know if it was just talking about how much obedience is too much. And as long as you're not breaking that dog down, I mean, I don't think that there isn't enough. Like, that dog should be consistent in recalling. That dog should be consistent in X, Y, and Z. I'm a professional trainer. I do it for a living. And my dogs are not where I want them. Because me training one police dog, i.e. Pino, I spend 8 hours a day with him, two Mondays a month, sometimes 3 Mondays a month, and he's singled out. It's him. Boom. We're out working. We're doing obedience. We're doing tracking. We're working on his aggression control. But when I've got, just like what you said, I've got 9 hounds that I am currently able to take hunting. That's not counting the pups that I have at home. I've got another little pup now that I've started, and we're calling her Sassy. And, I've already started putting her on a place board, elevating her, making her get up and down. And the place board's only, I think, 10 inches tall right now. But, I'm already working her because I want that well-mannered behavior. Like, I want my dogs to listen. I want my dogs to mind. And it makes the whole experience more pleasurable. You're not beating and swarping on dogs and, getting your arms pulled out of socket, and it just makes everything much better. So when I think about the why do I train my dogs? It's because I want a pleasurable experience. And I think we've all, just like you're talking about Autumn, and I can go back through several dogs that I've had over the past, which is going to bring us into another segment here in a minute. But, my old Frosty dog, my Bell female, I had that Walker dog. Now I didn't bear hunt him, but I just competition coon hunted him, and I didn't have to put a lead on him. They tried to scratch me one night at a night hunt because I called him off the tree and he walked out beside me, and they said I didn't have control of my dog. And I'm like, what do you mean I don't have control of him? He's standing here. Well, what if another dog barks and takes off? I said, he's not going till I tell him to. Hey guys, the journey on Houndsman XP is teamed up with Go Wild. Go Wild is a social media platform that was made for hunters by hunters. If you guys and gals have listened to any of the other podcasts that I've been on, you know what a huge outdoor enthusiast I am. I love being in the woods with my hounds. There's nothing more exciting than hearing the thunder of a spring gobbler. I love fishing for trout in the brooks and the streams, and I love being on the river chasing that ever-elusive fish of 1,000 casts, the muskie. Go Wild is the place that I can post my trophies, hunts, and memories without being censored. But Go Wild is so much more than that. It's a place to share your stories, sharpen your skills, hone your tactics, get gear reviews, and shop for anything outdoors. When you make a purchase from the Go Wild store, everything is free shipping. Anything that you purchase anywhere in the country, no matter how big, free shipping. So go down to the show notes, click on the Go Wild link at the bottom, and get signed up today. And let's go wild. If y'all purchase anything from Go Wild, make sure that you're using the Houndsman XP promo code. And that code is going to be HXP10. So when you go in there and you download your cart and you come up to the bottom and it says promo code, add Houndsman XP to it. The Journey on Houndsman XP has teamed up with One TDC. This dual action support for oral health and mobility in our dogs. This unique supplement is so effective that it is recommended by top veterinarian experts worldwide to maintain and improve our dog's health in 4 different areas. Their oral health, hips, joints, and muscles, skin, coat, energy, and recovery. Guys, I've been using this product for the last 6 months, and it has been a game changer for me. If you're looking for something to help with the overall health of your dog, go to worksowell.com and give this product a try. It is highly recommended by Houndsman XP here on The Journey. Those dogs, I never had to get on them. And that makes the whole experience so much better, is not having to yell and fuss and do all these things that we do when you have a dog that's well-mannered. And some dogs are geared differently, just like my Axe dog, the pup, the A-litter, that's like, he drives me bonkers, man. He's got a loose screw. Like, he's rattle-headed. But I can see some natural ability in him, and the tendency for most of us, and BB, I think you're in this category, I'll tolerate a little bit of silliness if he can produce results. My ring dog, that was one of the best dogs I've ever owned, was hard-headed as all get out, aggravated the snot out of me, literally give me gray hair at 20 years old, but he was a game-catching machine. And I tolerated some of that nonsense because of that. Does that resonate with you?
Yes. No, I there are some things that set me off, certain traits that are no-goes for me that I don't like. And I'm the type of person that I've got to like a dog, to have him around. There's got to be something about him that I really like for me to keep him around, and keep hunting them. But no, I'll let a dog get away with a lot. I mean, and really, when it comes down to it, that hard-headedness or that what's the best term for it? That drive that some of those hard-headed dogs have, are that for me is that trait. If they turn that drive into staying with a bear by themselves on the ground, and some of the thick stuff that we have, or putting that drive into getting that extra gear to pull out and run to catch that game. That's what I see a lot of it. And I will say that the bear dogs, for the most part, probably don't handle as good as my coon dog does, or did. But again, it was a singled out coon dog. You're toting. Yeah,
you and me were toting 6 dogs apiece today, so it's hard to single those dogs out.
Well, 6 dogs, and for me, in my truck, I had one 5-year-old, and then one 14-month-old, a 12-month-old, and 3 11-month-olds. Yep. So, they're very, very young. But for their age and what they're doing, I really like what I see there. Mm-hmm. So I let them I let them have a little bit of that. And just as, I've kind of evolved, I've learn the patience and the consistency of taking them and hunting them while maintaining that patience and cool-headedness takes you further and doesn't set you back is if you potentially lose your head and get upset with them or overcorrect or something like that. When it's training season, it's not that big of a deal. That's the whole point of training season. There will always be that next hunt that you can kind of work on things as you see them when it's appropriate to correct things or intervene in behaviors you might not desire.
Well, and that just brings up like that second race we had this morning. Like we had everything we had was under a year old or younger. I had no expectations of catching that bear. Like in my mind, I'm like, let them go, let them run. If they catch it, then heck yeah, that was a bonus. Mm-hmm. And if they didn't, then it's okay. That's a learning experience, and there was no pressure there. I had no reason to be upset, like none. But yeah, it's things like that help us become better. And again, I have evolved from I'm 28, 29 years now. I'd have to count. I still have flashbacks to some of my awfulness, but it's tenfold better, and I understand the dog's behaviors and what I can do, and I understand the biggest thing that I take away from the why. And you said it in yours. It's a process. Like, one of my buddies texted me today. Rome was not built in a day. These pups are not going to be built, especially for me. Now, you guys get to hunt more than I do. But for me, I'm looking probably 2 years before I start getting a handle on what's going on. So it's a process. I've got to get from A to Z, and I've got a lot of letters in between. And for me, each time I take them out, okay, a little bit of progress here. Okay, I had a setback here. I don't get as upset when the dogs don't perform to my expectations. Like, my expectations are one of my biggest downfalls, especially when you have people around and you want your dogs to have that extreme performance, and they just fall short because they're dogs. So, it is what it is. So we tapped into this, and we're going to go ahead and roll with it. So we was talking about some dogs of old, and I want to hear about some of your most memorable hunts. And I know, you and I have already talked. We've already talked about this. I'm gonna talk to you about my one of my most memorable ones first, and then I'm gonna switch it back to you because this goes back to the why and the excitement that filled me for days upon days after I accomplished this. So my most memorable hunt, bear hunting, is the day that I treat a bear with my dogs, and it was 3 of them. It was Frosty, Belle, and Clyde. Frosty was a black and tan Walker Cross. He looked like a black and tan, had a big old white patch in his chest, and he had a frost right across his nose. That's why he got his names from Frosty. I was hunting an area in behind my dad's, and I had struck a bear, and the dogs had went down into a valley and made a big loop, and they crossed the road behind me. Of course, Belle was my little blue female that I got from Dale Cameron, and Clyde was the other Cameron dog that I had. They crossed in behind me and went over into another big long valley. Of course, back then we had the beep beep collars. You didn't have, So the dogs went out of hearing, and I knew where to go to get up on a high point where I could listen down that valley. So I had pulled up to that high point, and I could still the beep. So the tree and switch went off. Everybody knows you go from the steady beep beep to the beep 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 beep. So the tree and switch was going off, but I couldn't hear the dogs. So I kept walking, and I don't know. They were a couple miles in there, and they were right on the creek. So I had to drop off the top of the the ridge, the top of the mountain down into the creek, and they were treed in. It was so dark down, and I have pictures of this. It was so dark down in there that you couldn't hardly see the flash on the camera. That's how old we are, because I had to carry a camera and have my film developed. The flash on the camera made it look like coon eyes. Like it was so dark down in this hollow. And it was just covered in laurels and rhododendrons. And the bear was sitting in the bottom fork, and it was probably 150, 175 pound bear. But those 3 dogs did it by themselves. They were mine. I was hunting by myself. No one else was with me. And I'll never forget that, like the excitement. I mean, my heart is actually speeding up now just talking about it, because that was the first time I ever accomplished that. Like, all the hard work, like you and I were talking this morning, people don't get that. You're spending hours and hours and hours out here running these young dogs by themselves, letting them learn, picking them up, spending gas money, paying vet bills. People lose track of that. And especially the people that get to see it 1 or 2 times, and maybe the non-hound hunters, you guys, if you guys are listening, you don't see the amount of time that goes into what we do. But, yeah, I was just I sat under that tree probably for an hour and let the dogs tree. I took pictures, and I'm telling you, when I come back up out of that valley and hit the AT and headed back to the truck, I was probably the proudest person on earth at that point in time, because that's something that I had been chasing for years. And when I say chasing for years, I was chasing that for years. And it happened to come together. And then, the seasons were still tough. I'd catch a bear or 2. I think the first season that I actually caught bear by myself, I think I caught 5 bear that season. And I was hunting hard. Like, it was every chance I had to go. I got up mornings and was like, why am I doing this? And, I was able to catch, I think, 4 or 5 bear that year. And I think I only killed one. We only killed one of those. Fred actually killed one of them, but that's one of my most memorable hunts, is that first one by myself. What say you, BB?
There's several memorable hunts that I've had. I've had some ones that got a little western. I've had some, but probably the one that comes out as far as my most memorable is probably like I said earlier in this, I took my grandfather, or my grandfather started taking me deer hunting when I was a little kid. So, he took me to kill my first deer. So probably the most memorable was I got to take him to kill his first bear. And that was a, I'll never forget that day. It wasn't necessarily all my dogs. It was the normal group of us down here that hunt. We were at a hunt club that my grandfather had been in since he was in diapers. So we had went and looked for tracks. It was sandy roads, so we went and looked for tracks. Found a decent track. Started it, and that thing made some loops in there, and finally got treed off this one particular path that we killed. This one particular path in this lease that we had was where we killed probably 80% of the bears we ever got after. But my grandfather's probably in his late 70s, mid to late 70s, and I think they were about 100 yards off the path. So not far at all, but just a perfect opportunity. So we the dogs had him treed up a little tiny pine. It was probably about 180 pound, 200 pound bear, boar bear. And I remember I carried my grandfather's shotgun in and cut a path. And then some other hunt club members helped him in because, older and kind of that cutover that we have here is not easy walking. Especially if you can't, if you're not as nimble on your feet, it's definitely hard to get through. I don't think he fell down on the way in there, but I'll never forget it because we got in there and it was so thick, short pines and everything like that. You almost had to shoot straight up with him because he was, you had to be so close in order to see him. But he would sit up there on a nice, and it wasn't a very big, probably, an inch and a half diameter limb. When he was kind of, for the most part, had a lot of his weight, but he was in the top of that little pine. And it was right funny. My grandfather, he shot. After we got all the dogs tied back, he shot. And I looked, I could see it out of the corner of my eye, and I just see the kind of gun barrel kind of go back. And the other hunt club members that were standing beside it, like right beside him, they ended up, I think, catching the gun. Well, he gets knocked over by that shotgun. And it kind of just falls over nice and graceful because they helped him. They actually kind of called him and just and led him to the ground. And I remember I was looking at the bear because we were so close that if he fell out, he was going to be right at our feet. And that's never a fun experience if they fall on you when they come out. So I look over and he's sitting on the ground laughing, and we look back up and the bear is still in the tree. I killed him dead, but that thing was stuck in that little pine tree. Them little limbs had him stuck in there. So we ended up leading all the dogs back and cut a street with the machetes, getting in there and help get my grandfather out. We were like, how are we going to get this bear out of this tree? And that, like I said, that one limb had most of his weight. And I think I had a 20 gauge slug gun. I said, if I shoot that limb out, he's liable to come out. And I didn't think I was going to hit that thing, but I aimed and shot and cut that limb right in two, and out come the bear. Just as pretty as you ever wanted to see. And there's been since times I've had them stuck in trees and it didn't work out like that. So I mean, it worked out perfect. But I can tell you, he was proud, and I was proud of that whole experience. We came back to the house, and my mom's always big into pictures, so we had to make sure we got the photo opportunity and had him, had the pictures on tailgates and stuff like that. And I mean, he's been lucky to get some more bears since then, a couple more bears since then. But that to me was, the fact that he took me to kill my first deer and I was able to take him to kill his first bear. That to me is just something I'll never forget. Even that it just is still mounted in his living room to this day. So it's a constant reminder, and stories like that. It's the Western ones or the ones that touch you or that have that sentimental value. And being able to share them. That's part of why I do this too. Because I'm gonna tell you, if it wasn't for bear hunting, I don't know what I would talk about because I don't know if I'd have many stories.
Yeah, I mean, it would be difficult, and I don't know what I would do with all my extra money. Like I thought about that the other day. I'm like, golly geez, man, I spend so much money on. I mean, the dog food alone, is horrible, and then I've got, and I mean, I'm looking, over my shoulder here. I mean, you got a row of tracking collars. I've got, a row of tracking collars. We've got extra GPSs or the handhelds. We've got tablets strapped to our truck. We've got antennas. I've got ready. I mean, it's like, what would I do if I had all this money? What would I waste it on, I guess? But, it's such, and I'm going right back to memorable hunts, what would I do without these memories? And I think about, I mean, I've got a lot. I've been blessed, man. I've met some of the best people in the world through hunting. All my guys in New York are like family. I got Rodney and Bob and Anthony. Those guys take you in just like they're your family. And they've treated me like family. They are some of my closest friends. Just like this bear this past year, that I was out on that top of that cliff and it was in a hole. I mean, that's a whole story within itself. But while you were sitting there talking about your grandfather, two of them popped up in my head. And it was the first time that Tyler, which is my son, I took him to his first bear tree. Now, Tyler's not, he's not like Maddie. Maddie loves outdoor. Now, Tyler does too, but he's not a big hunter. He likes to fish a little bit, but he loves to shoot guns. But I was hunting with Scott Mustard and them, back then, and we treed a bear off the side on the south of the mountain, and Tyler got into that tree, and I've literally got that picture at home. I've got a female named Sky and Ring, and it was Belle, my little blue female, and Tyler's standing beside the tree looking up, and Sky is stretched up on that tree as far as she can stretch, barking. That resonates with me. And then Maddie, the first tree she was ever at, it was me and Forrest and Jordan were together, and we were in this area, and we had all the kids, like Addison was there. Maddie was 5 years old. 5 years old. And the bear come out. We didn't have all the dogs tied. I had to walk back in there about 2 miles to get the dogs, and she went every step of the way with me. And she still does that. Like, you know, she's getting ready to turn 14, and her love for these dogs are probably as much as mine, if not more. She could care less about taking an animal. She doesn't care about it. And another memorable moment, and like I said, there's a lot in between. But this year, Maddie and I was basically hunting by ourselves, and we had 5 or 6 dogs, probably 6 dogs. Yeah, I mean, you had Spook and Kate, Maggie, Houdini Hart, and Trip. Yeah, so I had 6 dogs, and they treed 4.5 miles in, and we got in there, got to the tree, and she's like, "Dad, you going to shoot it?" And I'm like, "No, I don't even have a gun. Like, what would I shoot it for?" So we sit down on the rocks. We take some pictures. She pets the dogs. She loves on the dogs. She takes pictures of the dogs. And, you know, we spent some time there, and we get the dogs. And, I mean, she's leading 2 or 3 dogs. I don't remember. We let them out. And, you know, she talked about that hunt for 3 days. And that's a lot of my why. I get to spend time outdoors doing what I love to do, and I get to spend it with my daughter, who I love more than anything. And just a little caveat to the end of that. So we get home that night, and she takes a shower, and she comes and she sits on the couch. She's always sitting on the couch and throwing her feet up on me. And I look at her feet, and she's got blisters. And I mean blisters on her heels and on her toes. And I'm like, "Maddie." And she was like, "Yeah, them shoes hurt a little bit." She never once said a word about it. Not once. And I want to cry, because I know how it feels. Like, them muck boots I got blisters on my heels from yesterday from them. But it's things like that those memories, those times with my family and friends, close friends, that make it all worthwhile. Mm-hmm. I mean, it makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, taking folks. I mean, and I've taken a lot of people in to kill bears. You know, and a lot of times it's their first bears, and some of them are easy. Some of them, you know, it's treed. You know, they don't get a really full picture of what's going on. But I tell you what, the ones that really, you're gonna, you know, I sit back and think about it. You know, a lot of those people, they're gonna remember you for the rest of your life, mm-hmm. because of what you did. And I've carried people into the woods, and you know, helped them be successful in taking a bear, and everything work out all right. And I don't remember their names, but they remember me. And you know, I had a hunt. It's been a couple years ago now. I had to, you know, we had a big bear, a really, really, really big bear. I mean, I think he was 657. And we had I think he was 13, 14, maybe 14-year-old kid. And we walked that bear down. And I said, "Look," I said, "you need to be in my back pocket." I had to give him a pep talk in the middle of the woods. And you need to be in my back pocket, because when he stops, we got to be there. And he pushed through, and he did it, and put in a heck of a shot. And I said, "You'll never kill a bear that big ever again in your life."
That was a good one.
That was a monster bear. And the fact that he pushed through it and found out, you know, that in himself, I mean, because, you know, I've been in situations, I'm crawling through the briars or going across the water, and it's like, you know, why do I do this?
That why.
But I
comes
tell
up.
you, that drive and then motivating somebody to come with you to do that. I don't know how many people I've had with me, and they never forget. Or after the first time they go with me, and if they don't have the leather gloves with me, the next time they will.
Mm-hmm. I'm bringing them after the last 2 days. I've got 2 machetes that's laying in my basement up behind my bench, my dog bench. I'm putting it back in my truck. Like, I'm tired of eating them briars. But it's funny you say that. You talk about people remembering your names. So one of the guys that I work with was up in Richmond back in the 1st of April, and he texts me out of the blue, and he's like, "Hey, you remember a guy by the name of Matt Harris? Do you remember Matt?" So he used to coon hunt in Richmond, and he again, we're going back to Wendell Bond and David Linkus because that's where they hooked up. So Wendell and them brought him down, and I took him bear hunting. So my buddy that I work with says, "Hey, I'm down here turkey hunting with some family friends," and he said we were sitting around drinking a beer last night, and he said, I come down there and went bear hunting with a guy by the name of Heath." And Nate's like, "Heath?" He's like, "You went bear hunting with Heath?" And he was like, "Yeah, man, it's been like 20 years ago." And he said, "I'll never go back. He liked to kill me." Of course, you hunt in the mountains, and 20 years ago, I was in decent shape. But yeah, I mean, I remember Matt, but it had slipped. Mm-hmm. And when he brought that up, I was like, "You're kidding me." And he's like, "Yeah, dude." Like he knew everything. And he's like, I work with him. I know exactly who you're talking about. But you're right. People never forget that. Mm-hmm. And I have not seen him since. Mm-hmm. It's probably been 18, 20 years. And I have not seen him since. And like it was yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's something, that memory's, and a lot of it, I think, the adrenaline, I don't know, there's something about memory and adrenaline, whereas, and accomplishing or pushing through something to get, makes you or helps to remember things, helps you remember to a degree. But, I know faces better than I do names, but it's hard for me sometimes. And I feel bad. I'm trying to do better about trying to keep up with it, but it's, it's definitely something that it'll catch you off guard every once in a while, for sure.
Yeah. So before we wrap this up, what is your most scariest hunt?
I had so probably my worst. We were down helping an outfitter out, and
down here.
Actually, let's back up. So my scariest hunt. So and I will never forget this hunt either. We were in the same block we were hunting today, same exact block.
Oh yeah.
And we had folks in. They were recording for a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were trying to get a bayed bear on video with a bow.
Oh boy!
Or walking and baying bear, and that place there is about perfect for it because of the streaks.
Yeah.
So you can kind of hit him on those cut paths,
mm-hmm.
and when he steps out, most time he'll step out if he step out and he can get a decent shot on him. And it's thick enough there, the dogs a lot of times aren't necessarily ahead, but sometimes they'll come out ahead of the bear and everything like that. So it just has to be a perfect situation for that to actually work out. I mean, and it's really it's not an easy task to do, and so anyway, so we were doing that. It was raining, and I was in. We had a good bear, and we were walking in and been walking him and baying him, walking him and bearing him, and it was just getting late in the day. Dogs were getting worn out, and I had a buddy of mine and his son down, and that because they wanted to go bear hunting, and Doug said, "Well, go ahead and kill him if you get the opportunity." So we carried one gun in, and it was a semi-automatic 20-gauge shotgun. And we've been crawling through the bushes trying to stay downwind of the bear to try and get him to cross that street, and he wouldn't do it. He would go. He was just going to go where he wanted to go, and he wouldn't cross the street. So anyway, I handed this shotgun to my buddy's son, and
now how old was he?
He was probably, let me think, he was older. He's probably in his 20s, I think, because he was, I think, just got out of the Navy. He just got out of the Navy, and I think he's getting ready to go to college. So after getting out of the Navy, and so here comes this big bear. I mean, just I think he was 420 something, and he's just walking along in front of the dogs, and it was kind of in the end. It's kind of a little more clear, so you could see a pretty good ways. I don't know, they were probably 20 yards or so from us, and he's just walking along, and he goes to shoot the first time, and he drills a tree. I mean, shoots a tree just right. I mean, just drills that tree, and then the second shot, he shot him, and he high spined him. Kind of in that front, but he got him in the spine, so he's kind of he was put down. He was
incapacitated.
Yeah. So I grabbed the gun from him because the dogs, once that happens, the dogs are going to be all around him. So I grabbed the gun up there and just going to go finish him off. Where the bear sees me, and he was probably 10 yards. Well, that Durker closed that 10 yards.
Ooh.
Well, I put the gun up and I put the bead right between his eyes, and the gun went click.
Oh.
And that bear, if he wouldn't have been spined, or if I would have turned to run, he'd have had me. Because he come and he got up on his, kind of tried to get up on his back legs, but he couldn't quite do it. But he was trying to grab me with his claws.
Oh, wow.
And so all I remember seeing was his mouth open and the slobber between the two, his upper and lower jaw and lips. And the only thing I could think to do is to stick that gun barrel right down his throat. So I stuck that gun barrel probably, I mean, his bottom jaw was near about touching the forearm, the forearm grip. So he actually was biting the barrel, bent the vitted rib to the barrel. And I held him down. Luckily, like I said, if he wasn't spined, then he probably would have had me. And then I racked it, and
this is automatic.
It's semi-automatic. Yeah. So I racked it because I don't know, them inertia guns, if you don't hold them tight, they don't cycle sometimes. And so anyway, the dogs kind of got his attention where he turned and I racked it and put one more in him. And I think somebody else, he went a little bit further and I was shook up at that point. But then it's somewhat, he got finished off. But I mean, the bear, he would have died anyway. But it was just one of the things you need to get it done just before dogs start getting hurt. But yeah, that to me, I will never forget that. And that's, I don't carry a semi-automatic shotgun anymore.
Your vision of your detail of that vision, like the drool and the I saw the slobber.
And that is no joke. I mean, I can see it I can look back in my memories and see it right now because the only thing I could think to do is to stick that gun barrel down his throat.
Now, did you go home and have to clean your drawers?
No. I tell you, if it would have been about 30 seconds later, the camera crew would have had it on film.
Oh, wow.
The camera crew, and I was sitting there. It shook me up a little bit. There ain't no doubt about it.
Did they see it?
No, they were probably
just too far behind.
a little bit, probably 20 seconds behind from missing it.
Well, what about the boy and his dad?
I think they were shocked.
Yeah. Did they ever come back?
I don't think he's made it back. He would go. Now, since his, they were big coon hunters. So that's how I met them. They were coon hunters. But yeah, that was probably the sketchiest situation. I had, when they see you and they lay them ears back and they come to you and they close 10 yards, and a lot of times you'll get a fake, a bluff charge, and that happens a lot. You can kind of make yourself look as big as you can, and everything, But I don't know how many times people go in there and you're like, oh, go look at him bait up, and you hear him on the radio, but you don't hear no dogs in the background because they ain't very close.
That's right. They're not getting that close. Well, I mean, I'll tell you yesterday, and then I'll tell you one of my faux pas. But like yesterday, I was trying to get video of that bear coming down. So Wade had taken all the dogs, and I was just sitting there, and it stayed and stayed and stayed. Well, finally, it come down the tree, and it started huffing and blowing. And I was 20 yards back and behind some little trees. I mean, no bigger than your arm. And it finally come down to the base of the tree and then backed off the tree and started popping its teeth and woofing. And I'm like, crap. So I kind of like it's a finger, it's 3 trees together. And I kind of lean in behind him, and I'm like, this dude comes at me. I don't know where to go. Like, these trees aren't big enough to help. And that was a good bear. Mm-hmm. And, I hollered at Wade, and I was like, yeah, he's at the bottom of the tree. And I was trying to video it, but I respect them. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not there to cause you any problems. Just don't cause me any.
No, and that's definitely, you got to respect them. And the ones that ain't afraid of you,
yes,
they're the ones you got to really be aware. You got to keep an eye out on them, because if they look you dead in the eyes and they don't care.
Yeah.
And I've had them where they'll actually smell you and look for you.
That's what he was doing.
Yeah, I've had them where they, the dogs will be baying him, but he smells you, and you can tell he's smelling you. You'll be upwind, and a lot of times they'll break if they smell you. Mm-hmm. But I've had them actually come to me, because they smelt me, and that's a little eerie, because I'd try to get around behind the dogs, but you got to definitely respect them. You can't, you definitely can't get too laid back with them, because they're liable to put you in your place. I mean, I know a guy in Maine that's he's been bit twice 2 years in a row.
Well, Wesley's dad got bit this year, but he was trying to get dogs off. Well, there's a small bear in a timber cut, and we were trying to pull dogs off of it, and he reached in to grab one of the dogs who was biting the bear in the hind end, and the bear just swirled around and got him in the arm. But like I said, that made me a little uncomfortable yesterday. Like, he was kind of swaying back and forth, and he was kind of looking, and he would huff, and I'm like, yeah, dude, just go the other way. Like, just go the other way, because I'm not outrunning you in this swamp. But yeah, so I can't say that I was scared, but it was an inexperience, me being inexperienced, and again, hunting by myself and being, I don't know, I was hunting by myself. So I'd hunted this area all morning, and I had 3 dogs with me. Frosty, which was Frosty was a dog that could catch a bear by himself, and then I had 2 pups. They were actually exactly a year old, Bear and Hoss, and that's the 2 pups that I had. And I had hunted this whole valley out, and it was coming and walking back out, and got halfway down the logging road to the truck, and I still remember this as plain as day. It was like you dropped a cinder block on Frosty's head. He was just kind of trotting down the road. He went smash to the ground and then bellowing out of there. He went down over the bank, crossed the big valley, and the 2 pups went with him, and they didn't know anything. They didn't know anything at the time. He went up the valley, pulled halfway up the mountain on the other side, and treed. And so I pull in there. It takes me probably almost an hour to get to him. Maybe 45 minutes to get to him from where I was at. I get in there, and again, I have this picture. It's in my basement, in my little man room, with the date on it, September something, 2012 maybe. No, I don't remember. But the tree was leaning. It was a big oak tree, and it was leaning just a little bit, not a lot. And the bear was sitting in the bottom limb, and he was turned facing the base of the tree. And Frosty was literally, because the tree was leaning, Frosty could run up the tree. And every time Frosty would run up the tree, this bear would woof and smack the tree. And how he was not hitting Frosty is beyond me. So, inexperienced me, because I was green, I grabbed the 2 pups who were doing nothing and tie them up first. And then I get Frosty. Now, I did have Big Charlie and Eddie were with me that day, but they were in the truck. They weren't in the woods. So I go to catch Frosty, and I we're on. I got to pre-reference this. So the hill going down to the tree is steep, and it's rocks. It's like a rock ravine kind of. So I go to catch Frosty, so I'm standing at the base of the tree. Well, Frosty decides to run up the tree as I go to grab his collar. So I'm literally stretched up, pulling him back off the tree when this bear spins around, and decides to come down the tree. I have nowhere to go. Like I'm stuck. So the bear literally hits me in the back. So to vision this, my back is to the base of the tree. The bear's backing down the tree, and his rear end just drives me in the ground. Plasters me in the ground. Yes, I'm by myself. I redact that. It did scare the crap out of me because I didn't know if I was getting eat up or not. So anyway, how I managed to hold on to Frosty is beyond me, but I remember Frosty spinning me around on the ground on my belly, pulling me halfway down the hill before I could get stopped. Now, Frosty was a big dog. In shape, he was 88 pounds. So I get him tied up, and I get up, and I'm wearing Carhartt, the double-kneed Carhartt jeans, and it's got a perfect split vertically down my kneecap. My knee is numb, and I'm like, okay. So I sit down, I pull my pants up. I've got a pretty good gash in my knee, like pretty good gash. So I holler at that Big E, and I'm like, hey, man, I'm going to come out, but I'm going to come out down the valley. I said, I've cut my knee pretty bad, and I don't feel like walking back up, so I'm going to come down. And again, an hour and 45 minutes to get out of there. So I've got Frosty and the two pups. Of course, once I get away from the tree, again, Frosty was one of those dogs that you didn't have to put a lead on. The pups followed along, so I didn't have to lead any dogs after I got out of there. And hour and 45 minutes, Eddie brings my truck around. They look at me and they're like, you probably need to go to the hospital and get that sewed up. And, of course, by then, my whole leg's drenched. So that's why you should probably carry some type of first aid stuff with you. I actually have can't put a tourniquet on it, but I carry a tourniquet on my chest rig now. But so I get out, I decide I'm going to go to the doctor. So I drive all the way back to town and go to my doctor's office. And they're like, we don't stitch stuff up. You're going to have to go to the emergency room. Now, and of course, at the time, I'm driving Old Blue, which is my 94 Chevy, which is a stick shift. So I'm driving with one leg, clutch, brake, gas. So, because my knee had gotten really stiff by the time I got out. So I go to the hospital and I check myself in the emergency room, and they take me back there and they ask me what happened. And I was like, well, I got run over by a bear. Well, you would have think the world had come to an end. You did what? I'm like, well, I was bear hunting and bear, run over me. And the doctor's like, hold on a minute. And he left the room. And I'm like, what's he doing? Like, am I in trouble? Like, I didn't do anything. And he comes back in there and he was like, can you explain this to me again? And I explained to him that I tell him where I'm at. I said, I'm in a rock bar. The dog's a treed. I go to reach up to get the dog. The bear comes down. I'm turning away from it. The bear literally sits on my back, pushes me in the ground, and runs off. He said, so you weren't attacked? And I'm like, no, I was not attacked. Like, the bear's trying to get away, and I'm too dumb to know better. So anyway, they put 18 stitches in my knee. But he wanted to x-ray it to make sure my kneecap wasn't broke. I don't know why. But, yeah, that's one of my too close for calls encounters. And like I said, if I had to do that again, I'd done something differently. But by myself in the woods, like I said, I was an hour and a half to any road to get out. But, yeah, I respect the animal. I think they're a magnificent animal. I love to take pictures. I think it's when I feel most close to nature, too. Like when you're, just like today, you and I are sitting there. I mean, we're in the woods, and, we've got this, again, magnificent creature sitting 20 foot above our head. And how many people get to see that? How many people get to experience that? Mm-hmm. So we'll wrap this up, baby. What's your lasting thoughts here?
Oh, nothing. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Good talk.
Yeah.
Hopefully some folks will find those stories interesting. I know there's a whole bunch more I have that we could talk about, but it's, those are the ones that definitely jump to mind when you start talking.
Well, and that's one thing about hunting and hunting communities, especially the hound community, is like our whole group is family oriented. Like my family goes, Forrest's kids go, Wesley's wife and kids go. Hot Rod's wife and kids go. Like, it's a family outing. And, you know, those are memories that those people, and especially our kids, will never forget. When I'm long gone out of this world, I hope Maddie can look back and enjoy the times that she has spent with me and with us. So it kind of gets me a little emotional because it's that heartfelt for me. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, guys, hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, ask yourself, what's your why? Why do you train dogs? It's not so much about hunting with dogs. Dogs have a purpose, and that's what my why is. But I enjoy animals, and I love dogs, and I love having that partnership. It's kind of like me at work. You know, I have Pino with me 12 hours a day, every day I work. And, you know, out of the 70 people that I work with, there's only 2 of us that have that type of bond with something. And that kind of relates back to my hunting. So, BB, thank you guys for having me down. Hopefully I can make another trip here shortly, and we can have another race with them puppies like that today. Yeah. We catch him out in that field again, he's going to be hurting.
Yeah, I'd say so.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening.
Increased risk of death. Tell your doctor if you've had hepatitis B or C, have flu-like symptoms,